Is Frank Salcedo. So my name is Frank Salcedo Fierro, and I am a learning and development specialist here in Los Angeles at the USC Shoah Foundation. And today we're going to be focusing on our program that we have at the USC Shoah Foundation called Teaching Film with Testimony, which is all about how to use film and testimony to help students become agents of change in their community.
He's been through enough already.
So here are the goals for our workshop for today. So as a result of this workshop, participants will understand the value of teaching film and testimony and how it can be applied in a classroom setting, primary classroom specifically, to foster themes of resilience, courage, and hope in students. We're going to access and explore examples of testimony-based resources that connect with teaching film with testimony, and also learn some best practices for integrating film and testimony in a primary classroom setting. Okay. So first off, well, who are we? Who are we here at the USC Shoah Foundation? So we started as a result of the work of Steven Spielberg on the film Schindlers List. I don't know if anybody here has seen that film. It's from the early 90s. And in making the film, Spielberg realized that a lot of the testimonies that he was recording for the film were people who were starting to get a little bit older in age. And he realized that one day these individuals will no longer be with us. And he saw that it was a really important opportunity for him to be able to record these testimonies from the survivors of the Holocaust so that their stories would stay with us even when they are no longer with us themselves. So he started the USC Shoah Foundation as a result of that work. So in the 90s, they started to gather all of these testimonies. So our mission here at the USC Shoah Foundation is to develop empathy, understanding, and respect through testimony. We are testimony-based, meaning that all the work that we do is based on gathering the stories of individuals who have survived genocides, mainly from the Holocaust, but also other genocides that have happened more recently as well. So we are thoughtful in the work that we do, always considering the survivors themselves. We are hopeful in that the work at the USC Shoah Foundation can help make a difference in preventing future genocides in the future. And we are active, meaning that we are constantly seeking ways in order to be dynamic and to stay relevant in our current society. So how do we do what we do? Well, again, as I mentioned before, it is all based on testimony, which is a complex form of text. This session is all about literacy, and one of the big things here at the USC Shoah Foundation is understanding that text takes multiple forms, including an audio-visual form, because it is a story, right, that these individuals are sharing with us. So it is a form of text. And it provides a human face to the past, right? It engages people at the cognitive, moral, and affective levels. It engages students to differentiate information sources and text types. And it also asks them to reflect on stereotypes, misbeliefs, and generalizations as well. It is a primary source because these are the stories of the individuals who lived through those experiences. So as such, they are giving us a primary source of what happened during that time period. Specifically with the Holocaust, they all were survivors of the Holocaust or witnesses to what happened or rescuers who helped people. So they are primary sources. So thinking about testimony, how it intersects, there's this universality of story, right? We all tell stories in our families. So as a text type, it's very important to kind of consider that. And the main way that we share this work with educators specifically is through our IWitness website, where we are in 92 countries. We have over 3,600 testimonies and over 200,000 users who are on that website. And the specific program that we are going to be in, I'm going to skip this slide for today, because we're running a little short on time, is called Teaching Film with Testimony. So we're going to be looking at short films that are specific for an elementary classroom and how testimony can help contextualize some of the big themes and the messages in the films. But I'm going to pause here because I know I've gone through a lot in case there are any questions you want to share either out loud or in the chat. No? Okay. So we'll move on for now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up our Teaching Film with Testimony website. And this is what it looks like right here. So this is our website. As you can see, it has here what it says learning materials. And what I'm going to do before I go through the website, I'm going to drop this link into the chat so that everybody has it there. That way you can all access the website and be able to find these resources. So we have learning materials based on two categories, primary school and secondary school. If you're interested in secondary school, has a lot of resources as far as documentaries and feature films, including Schindler's List is here, resources that can be used for that. But we're focusing on primary here, so I'm going to go to primary school. And here we have a few different short films that you can be able to access that are specific for a primary level. And the two we'll be focusing on today are Ruth, A Little Girl's Big Journey, and the Tattooed Torah, which is also available in Spanish. So what I'm going to do here is ask this question before we go into the actual work of looking through the website. Why is it important for primary educators to address anti-Semitism, intolerance, bias, and prejudice with their students in age-appropriate ways? So you could drop our answer into the, again, Zoom chat. I'll give people about a minute to do that. Again, why is it important to do this work at the primary level? Here in California, as I'm sure around the country, there are very clear standards for high school to teach about the Holocaust, World War II, so that's very much unknown. But why is it also important to address these issues at the primary level? Very good. So I'm seeing to teach empathy. Yes, understanding and acceptance, empathy, stop cycles of hatred. Yes, exactly. Because all that work can be started very, very young, right? We can start to teach students at a very young age how to empathize with other people, how to be able to put themselves in somebody else's shoes and try to understand kind of where they're where they come from and what they're going through. Yeah, it's never too early to learn about those things, definitely. And yes, I agree. They hear about it from news and from other people as well. And to help them be better humans, it's important to kind of address that head on, right? Rather than kind of ignore it, it's important to address those issues head on. Very good, yes. So right now, I'm going to show you a brief clip of the film Ruth, A Little Girl's Big Journey, so you can see the story of Dr. Ruth. So this is all about Dr. Ruth, in case when some of us hopefully are familiar with Dr. Ruth. She has done a lot of good work in her field. And she herself was a Holocaust survivor, in case some of us did not know that. So here is the film. So the great thing about our website is that some of these films are embedded in the website, so you don't have to go try to find them or search for them. They're here embedded. And Dr. Ruth is one of these films. Her film is called Ruth, A Little Girl's Big Journey. So we're going to watch just the first few minutes here just to get a sense of what the film is about. And let me see if the sound is working. Give me a thumbs up to make sure the sound is working. Awesome, thank you. While it's playing, I'm going to drop the link to the Dr. Ruth website.
We all have journeys in our lives, never quite knowing where they will take us. Trains have always been a big part of my journeys. Many of them started with a train ride. I'm Dr. Ruth Westheimer, I'm now 92 years old. I lived for about 55 years in the same apartment in New York City. I wrote 40 books. I've done many radio and television shows.
Hey, Dr. Ruth, how are you?
And I'm famous for helping people by giving them advice. But my journey started in a very different place. I even had a different name. It was a journey in which I had to move across lands, learn new languages, make new friends. But it was a journey that helped me discover my courage and hope and made me who I am today. That's me at the age of 10 and a half. I was born on June 4th, 1928, with the name Carola Siegel in Germany. I was an only child to Jewish parents. Even so many years have passed, I remember my childhood very clearly. In 1933, a group of dangerous people called the Nazis came to power in Germany. They hated anyone who was different from them, including Jewish people like me. They burned the synagogues, arrested many Jewish people, and even put some in camps that were like prisons. They took their freedom away. I do remember when I was 10 years old, the morning that the Nazis came knocking loudly at my door. I was hiding under the table, horrified. I heard the Nazis tell my grandmother that they were going to take my father away to a camp. They took my father downstairs. Before they threw him into the truck, he turned around and smiled and waved. I loved my father so much. I could not believe he was being taken away from me. How could I go on without him? My family told me it was not safe for me in Germany anymore, and I must join a group of Jewish children on a train ride to Switzerland. I would be safe from the Nazis there.
Okay, so I'm going to pause there. I wish I could show you the whole film because it is really, really touching and incredible, the story of Dr. Ruth. But what I wanted to do is to go back to the PowerPoint and have you think about this question here before I show you part of her testimony, because we do have Dr. Ruth's testimony at the USC Shoah Foundation. So I want to ask you this question here, if it'll allow me. Is based on what we saw in the clip, what do we think is the central theme in Dr. Ruth's film, Ruth, a Little Girl's Big Journey? If we were to show this clip to students or part of this film, what would be the theme that we gather from that clip that we saw? Can give you just a moment to answer that. So I'm getting a few responses, so I'll just wait another minute or so for people to respond. And as you're responding, just a little bit about the films that we have. So as you saw, that film has closed captioning to be able to allow students to follow along the dialogue in the film. And also, most of the films that we have some sort of animation as part of the film, because research has shown that when you're talking about topics as intense and deep as the Holocaust and intolerance and bias and anti-Semitism, is very important to bring it to a children's level. So animation makes it a little bit more easy to digest and to make sense of things without alarming them. That's why whenever we have films for primary, they never show actual footage, for example, the concentration camps or the parades or any of that, because that would be kind of frightening for children. So that's why usually those segments are animated. Yeah, so some of the themes that we see here in the chat, big life change, how she will adjust to it, yes. So like these ideas of change. How she lives her life to help others, even though it started out tragically, yes. She ended up trying to help people, right? That was kind of that's been her career. Yeah, life is full of things to learn and different things to adjust to, right? Something that many children can relate to, right? That you always have change, whether you move, go to different places, there's change. Yes. So what I wanted to do now is to show you a film, a part of a testimony, kind of contextualize a little bit of the story that Dr. Ruth was sharing in that film. So here is our, again, Dr. Ruth film page. And if you scroll down, you'll see here there are activities, which I'll go to in just a moment. More stories from Dr. Ruth, which I'll also go into, but there's also testimony clips. Again, the big work here at the UC Shoah Foundation is gathering testimonies, people's stories of what they went through. So we have Dr. Ruth's testimony, which is, I think, about 2 hours long. But here are a few clips that you can show to kind of contextualize a little bit about the film, where she shares her story. So here's one in which she describes what it was like to leave her home and to go on this train ride to Switzerland that we kind of saw a little bit of in the film. So I'm going to go ahead and play this clip here. And the weird thing about the website as well is that you can save these clips if you create your own teacher account on IWitness, and you can also download them as well. So I'll play the clip now.
I remember my mother and grandmother saying that I have to go to the Jüdisches Waisenhaus for one night, that I have to go to the orphanage in Frankfurt. I knew that there was an orphanage, but I don't think I've ever been in there. And that the next day I would go on a train to Switzerland. I remember my mother and grandmother coming to the station the next morning because I had to sleep in that orphanage. And I remember them running, to say goodbye. I remember them saying goodbye and then running to see that train pull out. Whenever I'm in that city, which I don't like to be, but I have to go from time to time, I make a big circle around that railroad station. What I do know is here was Matilda, one girl who was in school with me. That was very important. I also know that there was a suitcase with chocolate and other things that they put in there. I'll tell you something about that. And I had a doll in my hands. That doll, I remember what she looked like. I gave to another girl who cried on the train. So when I talk about this home, I always have to say they did keep a roof over my head and fed me for 6 years. From January of 1939, because then in September the war broke out, until 1945, when I then went to Palestine. So on the one hand, I have to be that tremendous feeling of thankfulness, but I could talk like a whole year about the opportunities that were missed by the people who were responsible for us.
Okay, so you heard her testimony there. Again, there's many other clips here as well, if you would like to go through those on your own time. So going back to our PowerPoint here, the testimony we just heard, how could it play a role in contextualizing students' understanding of historical events? With this testimony, how could testimony help us to contextualize like what we saw in the film, what they learned in the news, what they learned from other people, How could hearing the stories directly from the survivors themselves, like Dr. Ruth, how could hearing those stories help them contextualize their understanding of historical events? Okay, just a quick question there. We have a few responses coming in. Yeah, so I would agree, like by listening to her describe what happened, it seems more real, right? It makes it more salient for students, makes it seem more, more real. For the real life visual, testimony connects students to the events, right? So it's not just something in a textbook, you could actually hear her story and it comes to life. Students can make connections and it is inspiring, it encourages perseverance, promotes empathy, because you see, again, this idea of you seeing a human face to a story. It's not just a textbook, but you see how somebody was impacted by what happened. Definitely. So I want to go a little bit now through the website and give you a chance to explore some of the resources there. Because this being about literacy, we do have the testimonies, which again is a form of text, is an audiovisual text. But also on the website, we do have actual books that were written or co-written by Dr. Ruth. So we have one called Crocodile, You're Beautiful. And in this one, Dr. Ruth is reading out the story of this crocodile and how it's different from other people, right? This idea of difference, but trying to find the beauty in our differences. So I click on here.
I'm Dr. Ruth K. Westheimer. I wrote a book, Crocodile, You're Beautiful. And all of you boys and girls, listen carefully, I'm going to read it to you. I have a body, you have a body, each of us has eyes for seeing, we have hands for touching, we have arms for reaching, or wings for flapping. But your body is different from mine. Why? Because it's all yours. Only you can make your body move. You are in charge of your body. But sometimes this is hard. Try this. Move all the parts of your body at once. Ready, set, go. Meet my friend Octopus. Sometimes I feel small and crowded. Why don't you reach out and fill your space, Octopus? Excuse me, I need more space. Whoops, too far. Sorry. Don't worry, guys. We can all fit on the bench. Try this. Stand up tall. Stretch out your arms and say, "This is my space." It looks like Crocodile.
So the story goes on. So again, ideas that everybody's different. We all have differences that are unique and beautiful. And then that's a good thing, right? We should respect each other's differences and empathize with each other. And then there's another book called Roller Coaster Grandma. in which Dr. Ruth explains the roller coaster of her life, right? The highs that she experienced, all the great accomplishments and achievements that she's had, and the lows that she had as well in her life, especially her childhood, going through the kinder transport, where she got separated from her family. So it's in like a graphic novel form, which I know students really enjoy. My daughter, when she was younger, she loved graphic novels, makes it a little bit easier to read. Again, this is on the website, so students could create a student account and be able to access this story as well, so that they can access this text and be able to read it on their own. Again, so there's different types of text right here. And what we also have on the website is activities that were built specifically for these different things. So we have activities that were built for the film. With Dr. Ruth, there's a previewing activity that students can go through before they watch the film. And then there's a lesson here where families can explore how to preserve a family story, right? And then we have here activities for kindergarten to second grade for Crocodile, Are You Beautiful? Because it's a very simple message of how we respect each other's differences. So these are little lessons that teachers can teach in conjunction with the story. And if I open it here, the activity, you'll have here a teacher guide for the activity. It's a PDF document. It kind of tells you what standards are addressed. We try to align all of our activities with Common Core standards. We also try to follow an SEL framework as well. It goes over the materials you'll need, the learning aims that you'll have. And then it goes through the instructions of what you will do in the lesson. So an introduction, a stand-up, sit-down game, whole group discussion. So it goes through all the details right here. And it has that for all of the activities that are lessons. You could just download this and be able to do the activity. And it has here the other handles that you'll need. So personal identity chart as well. And it has a testimony because all of our activities are tied to testimonies. We're a testimony-based center. So it has here the testimony in an MP4 format.
I was born on June 4th.
This was the one that we saw a little bit earlier. If I go back. So there are those activities for Crocodile, You're Beautiful. And all of these are mini lessons, we call them, except for this one. This one's called an Infoquest. So an Infoquest is a little bit different, where you have to create an IWitness account. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually drop into the chat a Google Drive that includes all the resources on how to create an IWitness account, how to create student groups, how to assign activities, and how to be able to use our platform. So the Google Drive is in the chat now, because this activity is a little bit different. It's not downloadable. You have to actually create an activity on the website. I mean, you have to go through the activity on the website. It's already created. You just have to go through it on the website. This one connects to the roller coaster grandma story. So you see here, you create an account, and then you go into the activity. It has a toolkit where you'll see the learning aims, the goals of the lesson, the requirements, has a map of Europe, has a little bit of background contextual information for the teacher. This here is what the students will see. They'll go through the introduction, historical context, and then they'll select a topic. They'll select one of these topics to be able to kind of gather some information. And Infoquest is students are learning about different topics that they have an interest in. They select one of these topics. Then they collect words from that. For example, the kinder transport to Switzerland from Dr. Ruth. They collect the 8 words. They type them here. Then they explain their collection. This is a little test here, but all their words will kind of form like a word cloud. And then they'll title their word cloud. They'll write the reflection here, and then they'll communicate by sharing their comments on other classmates' word clouds as well. And you as a teacher, what you can do is you can then be able to track what students are learning. You can be able to track their responses to each other, as well as their own word clouds, and assign them a score and be able to track how well they understood the material. And something new that we have, a new feature that I really, really love, is that it has a scoring guide here for teachers to be able to assess students without having to create one on their own. So it has 5 different ways that you can assess their learning: an overall score, comprehension, their writing skills, how will they apply knowledge, as well as their digital literacy skills, since this is a digital website. And it's a 4-point scale, which most of us are probably accustomed to as teachers. I was a middle school teacher for 6 years before my job here at the UC Social Foundation, so I love the opportunity to have something that's already built in. It makes the teacher's job much easier. So a 4, which exceeds proficiency, 3 meaning proficient, 2 approaching proficiency, and then 1 is emerging, and then 0 is not an incomplete. So once you create your own teacher account, you could create a student group and have students get a code similar to Google Classroom. When they create a student account, they'll add the code so that it can link their account to your teacher account and be able to then, you could assign them different activities. For example, this one here from Dr. Ruth, the Infoquest, and then they go through the activity. This is a great tool for when you have like a sub day, or if there happen to be like a school closure from illness or any other scenario, you could be able to assign this remotely, and students can be able to access this and do it at their own pace, which makes it really handy. I've gone through a lot so far, and I still have one more activity to go through, one more film page to go through with the Tattooed Torah. So I'm going to pause here to see if there's any questions or comments. Hopefully it was all very clear. And there's a lot here. I really recommend you to kind of go through our website and explore as much as you would like, because you'll find there's something here for most units that you might teach in elementary school. Okay, so now what I want us to do is kind of think about this question here, because I want to see from teachers, how might this work in your classrooms? So how might teaching with Ruth, A Little Girl's Big Journey, and Testimony and IWitness impact your teaching approach? And how likely are you to use and recommend the film with students, educators, or your own school community? I just want to get a sense of, like, is this feasible? Because we're always trying to innovate, to adapt to what teachers think and how they feel about the resources we have. So based on what you've seen so far, if you could please answer these questions here. So I'm seeing some really great comments. Somebody asked, maybe we could include lessons, SEL lessons for empathy. We actually have SEL lessons that we are developing with an organization called, I believe it's T-Cell, for social emotional learning. We also have worked with Nickelodeon, Wonderopolis, and the Conscious Kid to develop resources around empathy and understanding. So yeah, thank you for the recommendation. We're definitely trying to work on that as well. And I'm glad somebody said, Robin, that it will help put a real world spin on on this and help students relate to it. So I appreciate that. Yeah, the film is great. I highly recommend the film to help students gather some empathy and to learn how to see themselves in other people's shoes. Yes, the visuals are great. That's a big thing for us, is to make things visually appealing, since we are an audio-visual centered organization. Okay, so now I'm going to go through very briefly the Tattooed Torah, which is another film that we have in our Teaching Film and Testimony program. So here's the page. I'm gonna drop the link into the chat for the film. So let's see here, the Tattooed Torah. So this film is based on a book with the same title of a little boy who lost his Torah during the Holocaust and was able to track it down once he was an adult, which is a really inspiring story, because the Torah is a very special item for the Jewish people. So I'm going to show a brief clip of the film here. The narrator is somebody that you might recognize, so see if you can recognize the voice. And again, the film is embedded into the website itself here.
This is the story of a little tattooed Torah. It was always little, but not always tattooed. Many, many years ago, before you were born, the little Torah lived in a handsome wooden ark with an embroidered velvet curtain. Next to the little Torah stood several big Torahs, wearing soft velvet mantles of scarlet, purple, and blue. For thousands of years, the Torah has been the most precious possession of the Jewish people. It is a collection of handwritten laws and stories rolled up onto a big scroll. The Torah is cherished and loved and passed down from generation to generation. Torahs come in many shapes and sizes. Some are tall and some are short. Some have silver crowns and look like kings and queens. Others have silver bells that make gentle jingling sounds when they are taken out of the ark on Shabbat mornings and other holidays. Shabbat after Shabbat, holiday after holiday, year after year, the little Torah was held by a proud child marching in the procession. There was one little boy who especially loved the little Torah. He always held it during the holidays alongside the grown-ups. The little boy's earliest memory was of his grandfather, whom he called Zaidi, the town scribe, finishing the little Torah in his workshop. There was so much joy in the community the day the little Torah was brought into the synagogue. All of the children fell in love with it, and the grown-ups did too. A few years later, the little boy was learning how to read from the little Torah for his bar mitzvah. A bar mitzvah is the celebration of a Jewish child growing up. He and his Zaidi were practicing together for weeks. All of a sudden, there was a loud pounding on the door. Scared by the noise, the little boy stopped reading. Nazi soldiers entered the synagogue and nailed a large sign on the wall, then slammed the door shut as they left. It was a sign announcing a curfew, which meant that all Jews had to be home by nighttime. Zaidi was concerned, but only smiled and told the little boy not to worry, and that this would all be over before his bar mitzvah.
So I'll pause it there. So just in the film, it goes through how the Torah was taken away. They had to put numbers on the Torahs for the instructions of the Nazi soldiers, and they were separated, but he finally was able to track it down in the end. It was a really, really nice story as far as the resilience of individuals to be able to kind of track down their precious items that they were separated from. And here we have two activities, one that's a preview activity for 4th to 6th grade and a post-viewing activity. And these are both downloadable lessons. As I showed you earlier, downloadable lessons kind of have the standards there. It has the materials that you will need, the learning aims here. So this one really relates to students as far as having something that they really value and how they would feel if it was taken away from them, if they were separated from it. Maybe they've lost something in the past that they really cared about. Again, trying to build empathy and having students understand what other people go through. And here we have one educator who shared kind of how the lesson resonated with her. So she said her favorite part of the conversation was the evolution of each child's most precious possession. So before watching the film, they kind of talked about what their most prized possession was. And a lot of students went around valuable items like the trampoline in their backyard or the laptop they used to play video games in. And after the film, they realized how important certain items are they hadn't considered important, that are more related to like their family, for example, like special family recipes, family heirlooms, happy childhood memories that the students never want to forget. So it was really touching for this Toronto teacher, how over the course of the film, their perception of what was important, was truly valuable, kind of changed as a result of watching this film. So having gone through all of this, different examples of testimony and what we have in our film repertoire, in our teaching film testimony program, how do you see testimony possibly playing a role in your curriculum? So you can just share specific examples how you might use testimony or some of these films in the units that you teach or in the themes that you go through. So I see some really great comments coming through the chat. I'll share them in just a moment, give people a chance to finish their thought. Yeah, so somebody shared that testimony provides lots of feelings and emotion as to background knowledge, and that's to their schema. I think that's very important to kind of consider, having students kind of be able to perceive these themes in real life. Yeah, I agree. First-hand accounts are more powerful, easier for students to make a connection with what they see, again, a face to a story. It adds to their schema, provides real-world connection. And I think, yes, kids will remember the information longer, and that's actually true. We've done a lot of studies with the work that we do with testimony, and we've seen that students, when they hear testimony and they hear a story related to history, it resonates more and it stays with them longer. Personalizes the events and makes them more real. Yes, definitely. So hopefully this motivates you to kind of see how testimony can be a valuable part of your curriculum and to be able to use our resources. Again, they're free of charge. There's no need to pay. It is always free. So that's it on my end. I know that there's a survey that will be sent out by the organizers of the conference. I'm gonna have that individual kind of take over. That's it for me. I'm gonna put a link to our survey as well. If it's possible for you to complete this one, that would be great. But I'll say prioritize the survey that will be sent out by the organizers. But that's it on my end. I try to keep it brief just to make sure you have enough time for the surveys. Thank you so much. There's my email in case you have any questions or anything you want to share in the future.
Well, thank you all for being here. I put the links for the attendance tracker and for the survey, the session survey in chat. If you guys need anything else, I'll hang out here for a few minutes just in case. But thank you, Mr. Salcido Fierro. Did I say that
Yes.
right? Fierro?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. All right.
Thank you, Kathy.
All right. Thank you very much. It's been very interesting.
Awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, I'll stick around as well in case anybody has any questions until the time's up.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording now, though. I think we're
Okay.
pretty much done on that.
Yeah.
And
that sounds
then just hang out for a couple minutes just in case.
Okay.
All right. Perfect. Thank you.